You're earning $80,000 a year. You're checking off all the boxes the world told you to. But when you look at your bank account, it doesn't feel like $80,000. It feels like you're drowning in a sea of invisible expenses, gasping for air while everyone else seems to be swimming perfectly fine. You might think the problem is your rent, the price of groceries, or that one treat yourself vacation you took last summer. But it's not. It's not a math problem, it's a neural one. There's one specific mental habit you've been programmed to repeat since you got your first paycheck. And if you don't stop it now, you will stay broke forever, regardless of how many raises you get. But the real reason you haven't stopped isn't because you're lazy or disciplined. It's because your brain is actually terrified of what would happen if you did. Think about this for a second. Have you ever noticed that the more you earn, the more essential things suddenly become? When you are making $40,000, a basic coffee and a reliable used car were enough. Now that you're at $70,000 or $90,000, suddenly you need the membership, the upgraded trim, and the organic delivery service just to keep up with your own life. Be honest, is your life actually better, or is it just more expensive? Why does your brain treat a higher salary like a mandate to spend rather than an opportunity to save? It's because of a biological glitch called adaptive identity creep. Your brain is wired to survive, and in the ancient world, survival meant status. High status meant you got the best resources and the most protection. In the modern world, your brain translates wealth into status symbols. When your income goes up, your ventral striatum, the part of your brain that processes rewards, gets a massive dopamine hit. But here's the strange part. That dopamine hit isn't for having the money. It's for the perceived jump in status that money allows. You aren't buying a better car. You're buying a neural insurance policy that tells your brain, I am safe, I am moving up. But this is where things get interesting. Once that new status becomes your baseline, the dopamine stops. To get the same feeling of safety, you have to move the goalpost again. You've been programmed to believe that wealth is what you show, not what you have. And this leads us to the specific mental habit that is currently destroying your future. The habit of anchoring your identity to your highest income moment rather than your average one. Imagine your brain like a thermostat. When you get a raise to $85,000, you set your identity thermostat to that level. You start thinking, I'm an 85K person now. 85K people don't buy the generic brand. 85K people live in this neighborhood. But life isn't a flat line. Maybe work slows down, or you have an unexpected medical bill. Suddenly, your income dips or your expenses spike, but your thermostat is still stuck at $85,000. You're using credit or dipping into savings just to maintain the identity your brain has wired as safe. You are literally burning your future wealth to keep a mental ghost of your present status alive. But the real problem isn't just the spending, it's the neural feedback loop this creates. Every time you spend to maintain that identity, you reinforce a neural pathway that says, my value is tied to my consumption. This is the old brain versus the rewired brain. The old brain sees a luxury purchase as a shield against social rejection. It's terrified that if you look poor, you will be cast out. The rewired brain, however, understands that wealth is the silence of the money you don't spend. It's the freedom to say no because you're not trying to prove anything to people who aren't even looking. What surprised me most when studying this pattern is how it creates an emotional avoidance loop. Have you ever avoided looking at your bank account for a week because you knew you spent too much? That's not being irresponsible, that's your brain's prefrontal cortex, the logical part, shutting down because the emotional part is in a state of loss aversion panic. You're not lazy with money, you're emotionally avoidance because your brain has linked your bank balance to your self-worth. And here's where most people get it wrong. They think the answer is more discipline. They try to white-knuckle a budget for a month, fail, and then feel even more guilt. But you can't out-discipline a brain that thinks it's fighting for its social survival. You have to rewire the underlying habit. You have to shatter the dopamine status trap, the neural glitch where your brain mistakes looking rich for actually being wealthy. Think about the last time you felt spending guilt. That feeling isn't a sign that you're a bad person. It's a conflict between two neural networks. One wants the instant gratification of the dopamine hit, and the other, your future self, is screaming that you're trading your freedom for a temporary mood boost. Which one are you feeding right now? Most $60,000 to $90,000 earners are stuck in a middle-class trap where they earn too much to be broke but spend too much to be free. They're the walking rich, looking the part, but one paycheck away from the sea of red bills we saw earlier. But here's what most people never realize. The brain doesn't actually want the thing you're buying. It wants the feeling the thing provides. If you can learn to decouple that feeling from the purchase, the habit loses its power. This is where we move from understanding to empowerment. You need to start practicing what I call the identity pause. The next time you're about to make a purchase that feels like it fits your new lifestyle, whether it's the $100 dinner or the $500 tech upgrade, wait 48 hours and ask one question. Am I buying this for my life or am I buying this for my identity? If the answer is identity, you're just feeding the habit that destroys wealth. By waiting, you allow the dopamine spike in your ventral striatum to settle, letting your logical prefrontal cortex take back the wheel. And once you start noticing this pattern, you'll start seeing it everywhere. You'll realize that the need to look successful is the very thing keeping you from actually being successful. You've been programmed to stay in the race, but the only way to win is to realize the race is an illusion. You don't need to look rich, you need to be free. The shift happens the moment you realize that broke isn't a number in your bank account. It's a state of being blocked by your own biology. You earn enough. You are smart enough. You just have to stop letting your prehistoric brain run your 21st century finances. When you rewire that one habit, when you stop anchoring your worth to your spending, the sea of bills starts to recede. You find yourself standing on solid ground, maybe for the first time in your adult life. But understanding the habit is only half the battle. There's a deeper biological reason why your brain might still feel blocked from wealth even after you stop the spending. It's actually visible in brain scans. And once you see the MRI proof of how your brain literally shuts off its wealth-building centers, you'll understand why the first $1,000 was so hard to save. This connects directly to a hidden neural barrier most people never find, which is exactly what I break down in this video.